Shabbos Daf Chav presents the Gemara's discussion in an attempt to understand the statement that we saw in the Mishnah, that the only material that is made from plants that can become tamei if it is a roof over the dead is flax. And the Gemara will try to find a source for that. In order to do that, the Gemara will learn about the coverings of the Mishkan and what they were made out of. The Gemara will also, as part of that, explore what exactly the tachash animal was. The Gemara will try to figure out if it was kosher or non-kosher animal. The Gemara will then discuss, can a non-kosher animal serve as a material, its hide, can it serve as a material for holy things? The Gemara will discuss tefillin and the several features of tefillin, whether they can be made of non-kosher animals, and of course we will also discuss, can non-kosher animals become tamei if they are the roof over the dead or not. Now this will take us to the next Mishnah, which discusses what happens when you try to make a piece of cloth into a wick by rolling it up and by scorching it, or if you only do one of the two steps. The Gemara will try to explain the Mishnah there, which says that it cannot be used. There's a machlokas whether or not it could be used to light Shabbos candles, and also machlokas whether it is still makabel tumah or not. Now, the Gemara searches for a source for this halacha, which we saw in the Mishnah, that the only material that's plant makabel tumah, if it is a roof over the dead, is flax. The Gemara says, how do you know that? And the Gemara says it's from the following source. We have a link between the parsha discussing roof tumah and the Mishkan. Now the Mishkan had a roof, and the Mishkan's roof was made out of 3 layers. The lower layer was called Mishkan, it was made out of flax. The middle layer was called Oel, it was made out of goat's hair. And the upper layer was called Michse, it was made out of the hides of a tachash animal. Now, the middle layer is called Ohel. The bottom layer is called Mishkan, and the word Mishkan and Ohel are interchangeable because the pasuk links to 2 when it says it's Mishkan Ohel Moed. Therefore, the middle layer called Ohel and the lower layer called Mishkan are both linked to the word Oel in the parsha of roof tumah, which is again means that a roof over the dead becomes a tamei, and therefore anything which was part of the materials used to make the Oel layer or the Mishkan layer can be makabel tumah if it's a roof over the dead. Now, the Gemara says it does not have to be made in the exact same style that it was made in the Mishkan itself. The flax in the Mishkan was made out of 6 stranded threads spun together of flax. It doesn't have to be made that way because you have the extra word Oel. Oel actually says Oel 3 times in the parsha of roof tumah to include all styles of creation. However, the link does tell you that only these materials can count as roof tumah. Now, the Gemara says, hold on a second. You're telling me that the words Oel and Mishkan are interchangeable because they're linked. There's something else that's called Mishkan. The walls of the Mishkan, which are made out of wood, the krushim, are also called Mishkan because it says Es HaKrushim La Mishkan. So if those walls, which are wood, are also called Mishkan, and Mishkan is interchangeable with Oel, and Oel is linked to roof tumah, so then the wood should be a material which is also susceptible to roof tumah. Gemara says, no, you're right, but you're wrong. You're right that anything which is called Mishkan counts as roof tumah because of that link, but those wooden walls were never called Mishkan. It says Es Krashim La Mishkan. They are the beams for the Mishkan. It doesn't say they are the Mishkan, and therefore it doesn't count. The Gemara says, hold on a second. But what about the third layer, the highest layer of the roof? That was called a Michse, and that was made out of the skin of the tachash animal. According to what you are saying, that shouldn't count as Ohel either, because it was never actually called Ohel. It was never actually called Mishkan. It was called Ohel. It was called Michse al ha-Mishkan. It wasn't actually called Mishkan. So therefore it shouldn't count, it shouldn't be linked, and it should not be susceptible to tumah. So the Gemara says, okay, so I'm fine with that, so it's not susceptible to tumah. The Gemara says that can't be, because we have a Gemara where Rabbi Elazar asks, the skin of a non-kosher animal, he asks, could that be susceptible to roof tumah or not? Now, if you want to tell me that the tachash, which is a kosher animal, and it is not susceptible to roof tumah because you're telling me it's not included in the word Mishkan, it's not included in the word Oel. So then how could Rabbi Elazar go and ask if a non-kosher animal is susceptible to roof tumah, if even a kosher animal skin is not susceptible to roof tumah? Must be that it is susceptible. So the Gemara says, you're right. A kosher animal skin is susceptible to roof tumah, but that's not because the word michse is connected to the word mishkan. It's not interchangeable. It's for a different reason. It's because the Torah links the two when it describes the moving of the mishkan. It says they carried Yerios Mishkan ve'es al moed michseyu michsei atachta shesher olav, and therefore it links the upper layers and the lower layers, and therefore you have a different link that links the layer of michseh, which is made out of tachash skin. Therefore, anything made out of kosher animal skin is linked to the other layers of the roof, and those we already know are linked to the parsha of roof tumah, and therefore they all can be roof tumah. And therefore, Rabbi Eliezer has a good question: what about the skin of a non-kosher animal? The Gemara now discusses Rabbi Eliezer's question more deeply. Rabbi Eliezer had asked, can the skin of a non-kosher animal, the hide, anything made out of that hide, can that become tamei by being a roof over the dead? So the Gemara said, what kind of question is that? Rabbi Eliezer himself is the one who said that we only learn the materials that can become a tamei as a roof out of the Mishkan. There were no non-kosher animals in the roof of the Mishkan. So what's his question? His question was this tachash. What is it? We don't know what a tachash is. Is it a non-kosher animal, or is it a kosher animal? So Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef says that's not a question. You can't ask that. We know we have a brisa that says the only types of animals that can be used for any type of holy work is kosher animals. Therefore, the tachash must have been a kosher animal, and therefore he has no question. Non-kosher animals were not involved, and therefore they are not included in roof tumah. Now the Gemara says, hold on a second. Are you so sure that the tachash was a kosher animal? But Rabbi Nechemia brings a brisa. The brisa is a machlokes as to what the upper layer, the michseh, the highest layer, was made out of. Matter of fact, we're not even sure it was only one layer was the higher layer. It could be that there was a third and a fourth layer. One opinion is that there were two highest layers. One was made out of tachash and one was made out of ram skin that was turned red. The other opinion is that there was one highest layer, but it was half ram skin and half tachash skin. Either way, it describes it as looking like something called a tala elon, which is a type of carnivorous cat that lives in trees. Either way, it's a non-kosher animal. So you see here clearly that we're describing the tachash as this non-kosher animal. So therefore, how could you tell me that you're so sure that it was a kosher animal? So the Gemara says, no. It wasn't a non-kosher animal. It was spotted and had nice colors like this tala elon animal. It itself was a kosher animal. The Gemara says if you look at Targum Onkelos, when he translates the word tachash, he calls it sasgona. Sasgona is a combination of the word sas, givana, and which means that it was very happy with its own colors. It was a very beautiful animal. It was colored and spotted, and that's why it looks like the tala elon, but it was in fact a kosher animal. Now, what we've seen up till now is the opinion that the hide of a non-kosher animal cannot become tamei if it is the roof over the dead. Now the Gemara quotes two opinions which disagree. They are Rava and somebody else called Rava Mibarnish. Rava says, I'll prove to you that the hide of a non-kosher animal can become tamei as roof tumah as follows. We have two other types of tumah out there besides for roof tumah. There's tumas tzaras and the tumas shratzim. Both of them have an extra word oi when it discusses their application to skin of animals, and in each case the extra word is including non-kosher animals. As a matter of fact, in the case of tzaras, it also includes if it became tzaras in the hand of the kohen, or if it was made out of a patchwork of various different skins of various different animals. It's not really the point here. That's just the brisa that Rav is quoting. But either way, we have the extra word in the case of tumas tzaras and by tumas shratzim. Both of them have a specific conclusion that they do apply. That type of tumah does apply to non-kosher animal hides, and therefore I'm going to learn from there that the tumah of oel, roof tumah, also applies. Now, I couldn't learn directly from either of them because each one itself has a special stringency that would mean that I cannot learn any halachas out of there to the case of roof tumah. The stringency of tzaras tumah is that it applies even when it's only a vertical or horizontal weave, it's not a full weave. And the stringency of shratzim tumah is that it applies even on a very tiny piece of a sheretz the size of a lentil. Since they both have a stringency, maybe they only have since they have a special stringency, I could say on each one alone, I could say maybe it only has tumah on non-kosher animal skins because it has special strong tumah. We see it has special stringent halachas. However, from the combination of those two types of tumah, and each one does not have the other's stringency, I see that stringency is not what triggers the special halacha that their tumah could apply to non-kosher animal skins. Therefore, from between the two of them, I could learn that neither of those stringencies are needed to make non-kosher animal non-kosher animal skins be makabel that type of tumah, and therefore I could also apply that tumas oel, roof tumah, can also apply to non-kosher animal skins. Now, that's Rava's approach. However, Rava Mi Barnish disagrees. He says you can't prove anything from there because there is a special stringency that applies to both of them that does not apply to roof tumah. And that stringency is that both of them, their minimum size of tumah is less than the amount required for tumas oil. Tumas oil is a kizayis. Tumas shratzim is less than that, it's a lentil. And tumas teras is less than that, it's a gris, which is the size of a bean, also smaller than a zayis, smaller than an olive. So therefore, maybe the small size tumah, the reason why the tumah in those cases can apply to non-kosher animal skins is because that tumah is very strong. Both of them are strong. They both apply on smaller sizes than the tumah of roof tumah. But roof tumah, you couldn't learn out of there. So Ravami, Barnish says I have a different source to tell you that tumah does apply to non-kosher animal skins, and that is from the concept of goat's hair. Goat's hair cannot be makabel tumas taras, like we learned in the daf yesterday. Tumas taras doesn't apply to any type of cloth other than flax and wool. Goat's hair doesn't apply to. However, goat's hair could be makabel tumas oil, roof tumah. How do you know? Because one of the covers of the Mishkan was made out of goat's hair. The middle one, the oil. Therefore, I have a kavul chomer. Goat's hair does not get tumas taras, but it does get tumah of the roof. So therefore, obviously, I see it's easier to get tumah of the roof than it is to get tumas taras. And therefore, non-kosher animal skins, which does get tumas taras, like we have from the extra word o, should certainly be able to get the tumah of roof tumah, tumas oil. Now the Gemara says, hold on a second over here. You just brought me two proofs that non-kosher animal hides are susceptible to roof tumah. But the way that we had proved earlier that they're not susceptible to roof tumah is because they were not included in the roof of the Mishkan. And the way we knew that they're not included in the roof of the Mishkan is because we had proved that the tachash had to be a kosher animal, because we had a brisa that said that you can only use kosher animals for holy things. But if that's wrong, if that whole proof is wrong, so why do I need the brisa that tells me you can only use kosher animals for holy things? I don't need a brisa to tell me what the tachash was. That's ancient history. It's no longer relevant to any halacha. Why would the brisa tell me that? So Gemara now says, no, the brisa is telling me that you can only use kosher animals for holy things because it is relevant to certain halachas which still exist. For example, tefillin. What can you make the parchments, the parshios of the tefillin, what can they be written on? It can only be written on parchments made from kosher animals. So that's the halacha that it's teaching me. The Gemara says, no, it can't be teaching me that. That I know from a different source. The pasuk almost explicitly says that. It says, that anything which is Teres Hashem, anything which is written in the Torah has to be beficha, has to be something which you can eat, meaning it has to be from a kosher animal. So I do not need this brisa to tell me that. So Gemara says, okay, it's not for the parchments of the tefillin, it's for the boxes of tefillin. That you don't. That's not the Torah Shabiksav, and therefore you can't learn it out of Torah of the Mantia Torah Hashem beficha. Gemara says no. The boxes of the tefillin also count as Torah Shabiksav. You know why? Because there's a shin on the side of the shalosh connected with the dalid in the Ritzuos, and the yud that you make on your hand spells out shin dalid yud, the name of Hashem, and that counts as written Torah, and therefore it's got to be made out of something which is kosher. So Gemara says, okay, so it's not talking about that, it's talking about the hair and the sinews which you use to wrap the parchment in and to sew the boxes shut. Gemara says, no, that's halacha l'Moshe Misinai. If the brisa is telling me that, it should tell me that it's halacha l'Moshe Misinai that says that. You can't just tell me that on your own. Gemara says, okay, so it's to tell you that the ritzuos, the straps of the tefillin, have to be made from a kosher animal. That's what it's for. The Gemara says, no, that's also halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Because we have a special halacha l'Moshe Misinai which says that those straps have to be black. Gemara says, no. The halacha l'Moshe Misinai just says they have to be black. It doesn't tell you that they have to be from kosher animals. This brisa is coming to tell me that those straps have to be from kosher animals. That's what it's for. Okay, now the Gemara would like to know the tachash. What was it in the end? Did we ever decide, was that a kosher animal or a non-kosher animal? Since we no longer have a proof about that. So Gemara quotes a brisa, and based on the brisa, the Gemara proves that it must be a kosher animal. The brisa says as follows. Rameir used to say that the Tachash was a special creature which never existed before, never existed after, and it presented itself to Moshe Rabbeinu in order to make the Mishkan. And the Chachamim did not know whether it counted as a behema, as a domesticated animal, or as a chaya, as a wild animal. And it had one horn in the middle of its forehead. That's the Brisa. Now, the Gemara says, we have a rule that any horned animal is a kosher animal. So therefore, we can assume that the Tachash must be kosher. The Gemara says, hold on a second. We only have the rule about animals with two horns. This had only one horn. So if Yehuda says, no, we have a proof that any animal with even one horn is kosher because Admar Rishon made a carbon out of a one-horned bull. And the pasuk in Tehillim says, "Vatitav laHashem Yishor par makrin mafris," that his carbon was better before Hashem than a real bull which is horned and hooved. So you see that he had a kosher animal with only one horn, so kosher animals have only one horn. He says, what do you mean? The word makrin, horned, that seems to imply two horns. So why do you think it has only one horn? He says, no, because if you look at the word makrin, it's spelled without a yud, and therefore it's spelled mi keren, of a horn, which is implying that it had only a single horn. So therefore it had only a single horn, and it was still kosher, which implies that even single-horned animals are kosher, therefore the animal was kosher, therefore the tachash is also kosher. The Gemara says, hold on a second, but if you're comparing it to the horn, if you are comparing the tachash to the one-horned animal brought by Adam Arishon, that was a bull for sure, so therefore that was a behema. So why were the Chachamim not clear if the Tachash was a behema, a domesticated animal, or if it was a chaya, a wild animal? It's the same one-horned animal as the one-horned animal brought by Adam Rishon, and that was domesticated. So Gemara says, no, there's also a one-horned wild animal. It's something called the keresh, which is a one-horned wild animal. Therefore, there's a one-horned chaya, there's a one-horned behema. We did not know which one the Tachash was. Now this takes us to the Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah discusses the halacha of a wick that you made out of a piece of cloth. Now, the way that worked was as follows. You would take the cloth and roll it up or fold it up and twist it into a wick, and then you would have to burn it or singe it in a fire in order to make it able to burn properly as a wick. So those were the two steps. The Mishnah discusses if you rolled it and twisted it up, but you didn't burn it yet, you didn't singe it. So the Gemara has two machoksin about it. First of all, you're allowed to use it as a wick for Shabbos candles if it hasn't been singed yet. Rabbi Akiva says yes, Rabbi Eliezer says no. Second question is it mekabel tumah or not? A piece of cloth is mekabel tumah. It can become tameh. However, once you make it into a wick is not mekabel tumah. This thing, you did one of the two steps. You rolled it up, but you did not singe it yet. Is it mekabel tumah or not? Again, Rabbi Eliezer says it is mekabel tumah, and Rabbi Akiva says it is not. So the Gemara right away asks, what is the reason for this machlekes? So, as far as whether it's mekabel tumah or not, the Gemara says that's easy. The machlekes is it still called cloth? When it's twisted up, is it still called cloth, or is it already called wick? If it's still called cloth, it is mekabel tumah. If it's called wick, it's not mekabel tumah. However, why is there a machlekes about whether or not you're allowed to use it for Shabbos candles? So the Gemara answers that this actually has nothing to do with the fact that these are going to be used for Shabbos candles. We're talking about when Friday was a Yom Tov, and the problem here is that these wicks, which are made out of cloth that's rolled up and not yet singed, they are potentially going to become muktzah when you light them. They're going to become a type of muktzah called nolad. Now, this works as follows. The halacha is that if an object changes function on Yom Tov, then according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's muktzah. And that's what we're following over here. It's muktzah, it's called nolad. You cannot use it in its new function. It's got to be in the function that it's supposed to be the entire Yom Tov from the beginning until the end. If its function changes on Yom Tov, you are not allowed to use it for anything. Now, here we are discussing the following thing. This cloth was exactly 3 fingers by 3 fingers, which means it's the exact size required to be cloth. Any drop smaller, it's not cloth anymore. Now, these two people, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva, are both holding that you have to hold your flame by the wick until it is majority already in flame. So what happens is as follows. It's Yom Tov. You put the wick in. This wick is rolled, but it's not burned yet. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it already counts as a wick. That's already called wick. Therefore, it's not a cloth anymore. And so when you light it, even though it starts to burn, its function never changes. It's a wick the whole time. It never becomes nolad. It never becomes muktzah because its function was always wick from the beginning of Yom Tov until the end, and therefore there's no problem. You can use it for Shabbos candles. However, according to Rabbi Elazar, this thing is exactly the minimum size to be called cloth. It's rolled up. It's still called cloth. It's not called wick yet. When you light it, it becomes smaller. When it becomes smaller, it loses the function as cloth because it becomes too small and now becomes trash. And therefore becomes naila, it becomes mukta. And you have to keep your hand there because you have to keep it there until it gets fully inflamed, or at least majority inflamed. And you're not allowed to do that because it already became naila, it already became a mukta. Therefore, you're not allowed to use it to light Shabbos candles if it happens to be Yom Tov.